I cheated on my wife one time. Let me finish. In a dream that she had. Right?
Yes.
She came to me. She said, I had the dream you were having sex with my friend Megan. I was like, babe, relax. I have that dream all the time. All right. It crushes. It's a little hacky, but it's a great joke.
This episode of the podcast, we have our first return guest, Mr. Vince Fabra. Thanks for coming and hanging brain.
Dude, ready to hang some brain with you, brother.
I always feel super self-conscious on pronouncing your last name. I don't know if it's Fa or Fabra.
You want the hack? You want what I tell people? Fabra cadabra.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fabra cadabra.
The night I met my wife, I told her, she's like, how do you pronounce your last name? I said Fabra, like Fabra cadabra. And now we're married with 2 kids.
And now she pronounces it the same. Her last name.
Yeah, it's her last name,
perfect,
dude.
man.
Magic. That's magic right there.
So, man, since the last time you were here, you've been busy, really getting on the road with Dusty.
Yeah, man.
How has that been, man? Talk a little bit about that. Dusty Slay, for those who don't know.
Dusty Slay, for sure. And if you've never heard of Dusty Slay, my big break is opening for that guy. So that tells you where I'm at. But no, he's super hilarious. He has a special on Netflix called Working Man. Dude, it's like the easiest way to figure out if you have a good joke or not is tell it in front of 900 people.
Yeah.
And if it gets a big pop, it's a good joke. And if they're like, what else you got? Don't tell that joke anymore. You know, so they're ready to laugh. They bought a ticket. They're going to see their favorite comedian. They're ready to support you as the opening act. And if you have a joke that crushes, they'll let you know.
Yeah.
And if you have a mid joke that doesn't belong in your act, they'll let you know that too.
Well, I was curious about that when I ran into you in Las Vegas, because that show was for the big rodeo they have out there every year, which is a very Dusty crowd.
Yeah.
But was that a very Vince crowd too? It was like, I was like, does his material translate to that type of crowd?
Yeah.
How did those shows go out there in Vegas?
Well, first of all, I wore a super sweet rodeo looking shirt.
Yes.
I wore this Western shirt, a little bit of, pandering to the crowd. But it was great, man. It was really fun. I was at the David Copperfield Theater at the MGM Grand. I would say, a really good crowd, probably like 700, I think, was the capacity. It was almost sold out. And I went out first and had a really fun set, really great set. So, I think at the end of the day, whether you're a rodeo or you're a city folk, whatever, we all got kids, we all got wives or, relationships. And that's a majority of what I'm talking about these days, given my stage in life. And also that kind of refining that I had been talking about, it's like, okay, these are jokes that are working. How do we trim the fat and really only put up like the bangers?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's such a big thing that I'm working on right now, especially doing sketch comedy, is trimming that fat.
Yeah.
As we talked about earlier, my favorite comedian of all time is Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
His writer for Saturday Night Live, the Weekend Updates, was Jim Downey, and they're a big proponent of cut the fat, even if that means cutting into the muscle, which, for the layman's out there, pretty much means even if you've gotten a laugh on a joke before, if it can be sacrificed, sacrifice it and keep it tight. And for you, you've been doing comedy how long now?
First time I hit the stage was in 2008. So
wow,
it'll be like 17 years coming up around Thanksgiving this year.
That's insane, man.
Yeah, dude.
That is insane. I graduated 2009, so it makes me feel super old. But how would you say your writing style has evolved from that first, young Vince popping up on 2008 to where you are now, opening for one of the hottest comedians in the country?
Yeah, man. I mean, the biggest joke writing lesson that I've learned is exactly what we're talking about, like addition by subtraction, And so like the metaphor that I've come up with is you want to build an all-star team, So you write a 5-minute joke. 1 minute of that is going to be the strongest, right? The premise is the clearest. The jokes hit the hardest. Like that minute, we'll call that minute LeBron. That's your LeBron of that joke, right? You write another bit. It's got the best minute there. That's like your Steph Curry, And essentially what you're going to do is you sacrifice the role players, and what you put together is the all-star team, the dream team. You know what I'm saying? And now you wrote 50 minutes, but it got whittled down to 15 minutes. Yeah. And that is what it takes. Because you can put up the jokes that get like the mild chuckles, but it's going to kill your momentum. And if you just stack your set with kind of those like superstar jokes, you're crushing.
And that takes what a lot of people don't want to do these days. A lot of work and burning through, like you said, a mild joke. And it's so crazy what people will do just to fill time anyways these days.
Sure.
You know, you got people who are, you know, I would say even seasoned comedians who will go up and do 10, 15 minutes of crowd work just because they haven't put in the work on the writing. So that's super refreshing to hear. But I know it's got to be frustrating to do all that writing and have, you know, hour and a half, 2 hours worth of material dwindled down to 30, 45 minutes. Was that a struggle when you started making that transition?
It was a struggle, and you know, kind of like to continue with this basketball metaphor. It's like I was trying to turn role players into superstars, and I was like, if I could just tweak it this way, or if I could just say it a different way, or change the order, you know, like maybe that guy needs a different team, you know what I'm saying, like, and need a different situation, different coach, and it's like, nah, it's just a role player, and no disrespect, gets a laugh. But it's not hitting at the same level as kind of that strongest part of the joke. So it really becomes addition by subtraction. And then when you start kind of where I feel like I am now and very, very thankful to be arriving at this place is like, I understand what a Vince Fabra joke sounds like now, you know, or at least I think I do. And so to mix metaphors, it's like, you know, if you play the notes on a piano and you hit a wrong note, you hear it.
Yeah.
And you're like, it just doesn't sound right. So what is that scale that I need to be on? And so I think my whole brand right now is like super positive. We're having fun. I'm clean. I like a misdirection, especially these kind of short, it's really basically just ripping off from Dave Attell's special, like hot cross buns. Like I'm a Biden man, Hunter Biden. Like I just love that joke, dude. Like, and he has a run of jokes that's just like you think rug pull, you know. And so I kind of am understanding like, okay, this is what a Vince Fabra joke sounds like, and then refining, cutting the fat, even if you're cutting into the muscle, putting together the all-star team, and then you have a 15-minute set on Dusty's special taping in Chattanooga. You know, got a standing ovation after the first show. Oh wow! But I do have a joke where I say, you know, I have 2 kids and they think I'm hilarious, so I don't need you. That's what I tell the audience. And then I say, you know, but I feel like this is going well. I'll probably get a standing ovation later. So I did drop the nugget, you know, but it
that's
doesn't.
Okay, you still got it.
It doesn't work every time. It does. Most times the crowds hear that joke, they still don't stand up at the end. So it felt really good, and I just feel like you talked about, it is work, it is repetition, and it is willing to kind of be like, I wrote 50 minutes, but I only have 20 that are good. You know, 20 that are what I think should be on a stage, worthy of, you know, a $40 ticket and a babysitter and all that stuff.
You mentioned working clean now too. Was that something that you always had a lean towards, or is that something that shifted as you've kind of grown through your comedy career? I
think always kind of leaned towards clean. I had, you know, some blue material. I do like to swear in my real life, you know, and so that was probably the hardest thing to let go of, is just like a good F-bomb when you're kind of in the middle of a punchline or having fun, and if I'm doing a show that's not someone else's show, I'll still probably curse a little bit. But in terms of like writing super graphic and dirty jokes, it's just not what I'm into. It's not the comedy that I like listening to anymore. You know, like sometimes I'll hear our buddies talk about sexual escapades and I'm like, this is just gross and just so off-putting, and I don't find it funny at all, you know?
No, it's like we said, it's kind of grabbing that low-hanging fruit. And I think there's balance in all things because, you know, I worked pretty blue. I wouldn't say near as bad as, like you said, some of the people we know, but I definitely had sexually explicit jokes or just gross for the sake of being gross. And when I got the Nate Land show, Nate Bargatze's showcase that we've both been fortunate enough to do, that was a real challenge for me to sit down, write a new clean 10 minutes. And what I learned early on is, one, it was super rewarding to do.
Yeah.
That's probably the best I've ever felt about my writing.
That's
as far
awesome.
as being proud of it. But also too, like, clean doesn't necessarily have to mean nice. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You can still have, I don't want to say an edge, but you can still, stand on principles or punch up at people and do it without being super sexually explicit.
Yeah.
Or cursing,
Sure.
everything. And I think that's what maybe some people don't want to let go of the dirty, because they feel like that maybe they're losing their voice or losing their edge. But
Sure.
I was pleasantly surprised to find that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah,
really,
absolutely, man. Yeah. And I even think that there's like, you can do a clean sex joke.
Oh yeah.
I had a booker one time. She was in the college space, booking like comedians and stuff. And great note that I'll always remember is like, if your joke about sex makes me picture your genitalia or your partner's genitalia, it's a dirty joke.
Yeah.
But if you're just talking about a thing that we all as humans have experienced and constantly think about and prioritize, spend every waking moment trying to do, you're just doing a relatable material about sex.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm doing a show tonight. This will probably air after my show.
Yeah.
So I did a show on Wednesday, March 19th.
If you have a time machine, and you want to see that show.
Yeah. And I think my kids' teachers are coming to the show tonight.
Okay.
So I have asked like the other comedians on the lineup, like, hey, like, you can say the F word, but not in the verb form.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you can talk about sex, but that genitalia kind of rule.
Yeah.
If we're picturing you doing the act, it's a dirty joke.
With these being all Alabama comedians, you have to explain what a verb was.
And what genitalia is.
That's some type of squid.
That's funny. They're like in an animal book, like looking for genitalia. Like, I feel like I can name drop our good friend Becca Rothman.
Mm-hmm.
She has a joke about moving to the South, and now she says roll tide after sex.
I swear to God, I had it loaded up in the brain. I was going to bring Becca and that. And not to give her punchlines or anything away. Roll Tide.
And so it was like, yeah, that's a clean joke about sex, because you're not talking about the act. So we're in the Instagram group chat, and she says, "Is my roll tide joke okay?" I'm like, that's the perfect example.
That is the great
of a clean-ish joke about sex. I don't know if you can have a fully clean joke like a Brian Regan family-friendly kind of joke, but that's like a PG-13 joke about sex.
Yeah,
and to me, that's fine.
And if you'll let me indulge a little bit, just to give Becca a shout out, she did that material up in New York City at Gotham Comedy Club and absolutely killed with that. With that material, that joke in particular really killed.
Yeah.
So Becca's doing great. Friend of the show.
Show.
Got to give her a shout out.
Dude, friend of the show, and she crushed on Wednesday, March 19th at True Story Brewing Company. She absolutely destroyed. And like, I have this joke, probably the joke I've been doing the longest. I've been doing this joke 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. I retired it, and then I was like, it fits with this other material that I'm doing, so I'm bringing it back. It's like, I cheated on my wife one time. Let me finish. In a dream that she had, right?
Yes.
She came to me. She said, I had a dream you were having sex with my friend Megan. I was like, babe, relax. I have that dream all the time. All right. It crushes. It's a little hacky, but it's a great joke.
That is a great joke.
And it's clean. But if I was describing how me and Megan were doing the act, and now you can't help but picture Megan in all kinds of different positions, not a clean joke anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of a dirty joke.
Yeah.
So, but you can still talk, like you said, you can still have a little bit of bite. You can still have a little bit of edge. You can still, talk about topics that aren't on the Disney Channel, you know, and be a clean comedian.
Yeah.
Like that joke, that dream joke, I do that for Dusty's crowds in the theaters. And it goes great. Yeah. Nobody's complaining.
Do you subscribe to like the, this is big on cruise ships where you have to do an hour clean, hour, adult, about reframing jokes to make them clean? Or do you think that it should just be something where you're just working completely new material because that really doesn't work, trying to translate something?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can kind of tell when someone is like not like writing true or like performing jokes that are true to their voice.
Yeah.
And that goes with like lifted material as well. Like you'll see these videos online of being like, this guy stole Patton Oswalt's joke.
Yeah.
And then you watch the guy do Patton Oswalt's joke and it's like, yeah, it's clear this guy didn't write this. Like it's coming from a different part of his brain, like a memorizing something that I once learned and saw and retained, as opposed to like, this is what I think and feel and believe. And I think that same kind of mismatch, you know, where it's just like this, the audio and the visual don't sync up. You know? It's like something's off about this. And so I think about some of the comedians that do really well being their authentic self and talking about some dirty topics and being edgy, and you try to, you know, put them in a suit and make them do, you know, a Ray Romano bit or like Ray Romano, like clean style comedy, and just feels off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what comes to mind for me is, again, to go back to Norm Macdonald, any chance I get to bring him up, I will do it. But he was talking about like when he was early on, it's kind of like what we talk about is, you know, me being a younger comedian, as far as like where I'm at in my career, not super younger as far as age. Yeah. Not taking a shot there.
But you're looking great.
Oh, thanks, man. I feel horrible. But no, so he was opening for Sam Kinison, and he was doing a bunch of like kind of really goofy jokes about dogs and stuff like that. And Sam Kinison was like, do you care about dogs? And Norm was thinking about it. He's like, no. And then he had like a 20-minute bit about dogs. Yeah. And it's so funny when you can see the shift when Norm went through what he went through with the cancer for 11 years, never told anybody. That was actually his second bout with cancer. Because in the 90s, he had stomach cancer and he had to stop doing stand-up for a while. Oh, wow. And you could tell in his material, you know, especially in that special that came out around like 2009, 2010, he really just talked about mortality. It made it so funny, as he can do. Yeah. But it's so kind of sad now, going back and watching it, knowing that was so heavy on his mind and weighing on him. And the only real medium he chose to talk about it was stand-up. But nobody knew that he was talking about himself because he wasn't sharing it with his friends. I don't know if anybody knew, because that's all you hear. I didn't even know he was sick. Yeah. And so it is funny, and it is, I think, kind of like that evolution of going from open micer or, you know, really working hacky material into finding your voice, finding stuff that you care about that's true to you. Yeah. And I feel like I'm getting there, hopefully, you know, and then I know you're there in spades, and that's what's so cool to watch you, whether it's at a Zydeco open mic in front of 6 people, which I've had the pleasure of seeing you do. Crushed. Or the Copperfield Theater, you know, in front of 700 people, is you always come off, one, exactly the same, because you are your authentic self. Oh, so that's really cool, just to throw you a compliment.
Yeah, that's like the highest compliment a stand-up can get, is like your jokes only sound like your jokes. Yeah. You know, and like that's something that I've been working really hard at. It's like, it's easy just to be another white guy with plastic glasses, you know, kind of being like, hey, I'm kind of dorky, but I'm kind of cool, you know, like I did theater and football in high school, you know, like that is my vibe, you know? And so it's like, how do you take that, what can be easily replicated kind of voice and try to find something that's really singular. And so, you know, I'm still working on that. For sure. And, you know, and like a lot of people have dad material, a lot of people have relationship material. It's like, okay, well, what's my take, and, you know, how do I interact with those things in real life that's unique to me? Yeah. And then how do I bring that to stand up?
Well, so the 2 times you've come on, you've dropped nuggets. Obviously, you're writing nugget here. Yeah. That you gave a nugget last time. I'm trying to, it wasn't yes and, but it's if then, yeah, which is great, which I've tried to implement. Any more of those gold nuggets you'd like to share?
Oh man. Yeah. I really wanted to do the all-star team one. That was great. That's why we rolled the camera, so I could talk about,
and that was one of the ones I'm talking about. Like that's gold, man. And I think people, you know, they don't know that there can be a method to this when they're first starting. They're just like, oh, I got to go up and tell a funny story that happened to me. But there was actually something really good, and I don't know if you want to share it, so we can cut this if you don't. But you brought up a improv tip in the writer's room. We had a little writing session before. Are you comfortable talking about
Let's
that?
do it. Yeah. So the concept is called $1 Million Cookie. There's a hook.
That is the hook.
There's
that is
a
getting
hook.
cut, and that is going to be the hook. Yeah.
There's the hook. $1 Million Cookie. So I was doing an improv scene with my 5-year-old daughter at the time. You know, we were just goofing around, and I knocked on the door. She opened the door. I was like, I have some Girl Scout cookies for sale. She said, I'd love a box. How much? I said, $5. Totally expecting her, because of all the improv I've done, where people create unnecessary conflict for no reason, to be like, oh, but I don't have the money. And now we're in a stupid, boring scene about a transaction. First of all, I started a transaction scene, which is like hack for improv, right?
Yeah.
You want people that know each other. You want a relationship to be formed. So I made a mistake of starting a hack improv premise. My 5-year-old didn't fall into the trap of like, oh no, now there's a problem. I said $5 for the box of cookies, and she said, here, take $1 million.
Yeah. That's great. That's so profound.
It's so profound, because now that scene can go in an infinite amount of directions.
Yeah.
As an improviser in that moment, playing pretend with my daughter, I'm like, okay, cool. The next beat of that scene, I'm bringing 3 more Girl Scouts to this lady's house. Be like, watch this, watch this, right? Knock on the door, boom, million, right? Beat 3, we're at the troop meeting where they're like, the top sellers this year are all 3 of us that got the million, you know, so it's like, it
Blasting
can go
last year's record.
yeah, totally. So it goes in a million different directions just because of that like absurdly positive choice. Yeah. And so I think that's obviously an improv tip. It's like $1 million cookies, man. Like not everything has to be a fight. Not everything has to be kind of a conflict. It can be anything. And what's interesting, absurd is interesting, and positive is refreshing. So put those 2 things together, and man, like you've got a really fun improv scene. And I think that the same can be said for stand-up jokes. Like a lot of stand-up is rooted in, and rightfully so, like, this sucks. I hate this. Like the man, like, let's punch up, punch down, whatever. We're punching, right? What does it look like for us to just be a little bit more positive?
Yeah.
And even like self-deprecating. It's like negative. I am a piece of shit, blah, 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 blah. But what if it's like, this is what I love.
Yeah.
Like, how great is this?
Yeah.
Oh, this is my favorite thing about X, Y, Z, you know? And so I just think like that, that absurd positivity, that radical positivity is something that I'm trying to bring in the joke writing.
So good.
$1 Million Cookies.
Also, just love how you're trying to gaslight your daughter into doing something wrong so you can teach her a lesson.
No, like, we were just playing pretend. Yeah, we were at the zoo, and they had this like kind of, I guess, like birchwood set up, and it looked like a door frame, you know. So I just pretended to knock, and that's what came out. And doing years of improv, I was just like, wow, what a profound
You might
lesson.
have a comedic prodigy on your hand too.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of times when I've seen you do stand up though, you don't really dive too much into crowd work, do you? Or
I'm not doing crowd work, but I'll riff bits,
Yeah.
you know, like I'll kind of write a joke so far, and then if you keep getting laughs, like just keep following the laughs until they stop. And so sometimes you'll say things that aren't written. Mm-hmm. That's improv.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. Anything you want to plug? So this is something me and Vince are working really hard on, is trying to grow social media presence.
Yeah, man.
You've already for the last few months been diving into some sketch comedy.
Yeah.
So please tell people where they can find you, follow you.
Please follow me at Very Funny Vince. That's kind of where I'm at on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. Just Vince Fabra. You can subscribe to my YouTube. That would help.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. But if you live in Birmingham and you follow me, I'll post about shows. You can come see me live and in person, stand up or improv. It would be great.
That's great. All right. See you next time.
Hanging brain, dude. And this is where we pull our nuts out.
Yes.